1855 and 1870, more than 10% of the gold and silver exports through San Francisco went to China, an amount of more than $72 million, equivalent to more than $13 billion today. According to one account, Chinese miner in 1871 took out $500,000 in gold from Tuscaloosa region in Nevada. Numerous individuals even became rags to riches legend. For example, after 4 decades of hard work, Low Key of Boise Basin, Idaho, accumulate a fortune estimated between $60,000 to $90,000, equivalent to $1.5 million today. Engaging in various business, Qingling Zhou of Colorado rose from a common laborer to an affluent merchant in 1977 as part of the Colorado Centennial Bicentennial observance. A stained glass portrait of Qingling Zhou was installed in the Capitol in commemoration of the success and the contribution of a Chinese pioneer to the settling of Colorado. Now, shows the success story. There's another picture. That's the residence of Sam Hing, El Paso. Now, if you were able to live in this kind of house, you were not poor. 19th century. It's a mansion, right? So, while helping to settle and build the American West, the Chinese played an indisputable role in enriching the distinctive Western culture. Constant battle for economic survival did not prevent the Chinese from exerting their cultural influence on the main society. In fact, social and cultural interactions between Chinese and other ethnic groups occurred more frequently and on a more profound level than has been acknowledged. For example, commonly known as the Chinese lottery, the popular white pigeon ticket game would be renamed in the 20th century Keno, and acclaimed in the 19th century as original American pastime. Common American phrase originate in Chinese pidgin English as well. Among the best known is a greeting, long time no see, which is still in use today, right? That's a pidgin, English. Chinese also offer popular service at various places, including, brothel, gambling house, open dance, grocery. That's the Chinese store in Montana. Try to attract various business, including white customer. That's the paint shop in Boulder, Colorado. You look at the advertisement on the left side, Chinese character. That means Chinese will, the main, we see the customer. And also, this one showing Tucson, Arizona, the Chinese grocery. We see the use of both English and Spanish. Sign, language, bilingual, trilingual, this case. That's right. And these services and other amenities provide the Chinatown of the West sometimes entice famous residents like Calamity Jane and Deadwood Dick. In Los Angeles, the Chinese gladly to move into an old Mexican neighborhood called Calle de los Negros, Black Alley. The Chinese welcome all racial groups, creating Chinatown made up Chinese, Anglo, Latinos, and blacks. In fact, many 19th century Chinatown were dynamic, multi-ethnic neighborhoods. This mix of different people with distinctive culture inevitably encourages social concession that forge cultural infusion and a multi-layered Western American society. Many facets of this acculturation came from Chinese culture and then were accepted as cultural norm. In addition to daily contact, the common activities, special events such as Chinese funeral, New Year's celebration, and the 4th of July offer great opportunity for cultural education and social tolerance. On On this occasion, both Chinese and whites participate in the other's event for either curiosity or respect. In the 19th century, for example, it almost became a Western tradition for Chinese to hire a white brass band to lead a funeral procession. Now that's in Denver. Also, I found pictures, reporting all the place. Deadwood, Idaho. The wail of a Chinese mourner and the music of the American band together create a theatrical scene for local community. Some bands even learn how to play a few Chinese melody for the event. At one funeral in Idaho City, mischievous white band member even played a joke on Chinese. As Chinese pallbearers slowly lowered the coffin into the grave, the band broke into an Irish drinking song, Down Went McGinley. Chinese also furnished food, including roast pig, boiled chicken, sweet beef, and other dishes at the funeral site as part of the tradition and a ritual. According to their belief, the deceased were not going to starve in the next world with such a feast present at their funeral. Children often followed the funeral procession and took advantage of this custom, engaging in a big feast. After the Chinese left the cemetery. After the funeral, family and friends of the deceased generally gave everyone in attendance a small amount of gold dust or money to express their appreciation to those who came to memorize and remember the deceased. With the promise of such a gift and an elaborate ritual, Chinese funerals were able to draw a large crowd of both participants and spectators. A Chinese funeral was more than just a family business. In fact, it was a community event. As Mark Twain once said, in order to know a community, one must observe the style of its funerals. No event was more excitedly participated in by both Chinese and white than the Chinese New Year. Since the Chinese New Year often occurred in late January or early February, a slow winter season gave people more free time to prepare for their big holiday. The celebration usually lasts for 2 weeks. People decorate homes and stores inside and out with colored banners, red lanterns, artificial flowers, and other ornaments. The distinctive decoration of the Chinese dwelling immediately drew public attention. People put on their Sunday best to celebrate this holiday. For a few days, all work was suspended. Everyone had an open house. The Chinese welcome guests treat them with food, cigar, liquor, and a gift. A great number of white, even local officials and business elite pay a call to Chinatown out of simple curiosity or neighborhood envy. During the New Year celebration, the loudest and the brightest moment, undoubtedly, was the spectacular shooting of a firecracker. Local children were always delighted. The adults also want to see some impressive giant firecrackers, as large as hand grenade and a cannonball. A few even over-elated Chinese will add their special effect by spontaneously shooting their pistol into the air in true Western style. For days, the loud blast and the smoke lured residents, regardless of their ethnicity, to Chinatown. Like the fur trade rendezvous, the Chinese New Year, on its own merit, gradually turned into a traditional Western celebration that transcended ethnic and racial difference. Just as the Chinese welcomed others to their holiday, white Americans returned their courtesy by inviting their Asian neighbors to their festivals. It was common throughout the West for Chinese to participate in 4th of July parade, led by a traditional Chinese band with native music instruments The Chinese column, in which the participants dressed in their native clothes and carried Chinese banner, became one of the highlights of the parade. Once in Delaware, Dakota territory, as the Chinese column passed through the main street, it received an ovation. In February 1877, Denver, Colorado held its annual Mardi Gras Gala, in which happened to occur on the second day of the Chinese New Year. The local organizers of the event creatively combined the two celebrations, adding a Chinese New Year theme to the Carnival Night Masquerade. After whites went to the Chinatown for the celebration during the day, the Chinese, including their musical band, went to perform for the others in the evening. Shared laughter always got a better result than collective anger. This kind of a Chinese-white interchange created a healthy atmosphere for cultural tolerance and coexistence in the frontier community. While discussing some positive aspect of a Chinese-white relation, I don't want to give you the false impression of an all-embracing racial harmony between the two groups. As we all know, the Chinese, like other minority groups, such as Black, Latinos, and Indian, encounter widespread racial violence both collectively and individually. On the American frontier, between 1852 and 1908, there were at least 150 major violent incidents against the Chinese in the West. Some anti-Chinese incidents, such as the Los Angeles Riot, the Rock Spring Massacre, the Seattle Tacoma Riot, and the Snake River Massacre, drew national and international attention. As a result, at least 100 Chinese were killed, and thousands injured, and millions of dollars worth of property destroyed. Giving a more accurate picture of Western violence, Chinese were not just a passive victim. Instead, they played all the frontier roles: victim, and villain. Some Chinese immigrants themselves, with evil mind and ferocious personalities, were arsonists, assailants, robbers, and killers. But even righteous people show little reluctance to exercise the right of self-defense in a fierce manner. To survive in a violent society, the Chinese immigrant didn't hesitate to acquire expensive weapons and quickly learned how to use them for self-protection. In 1870, one gun dealer in Los Angeles sold 50 weapons to Chinese community, with a total population of only 200. I don't know how the National Rifle Association think about this. The Daily Out of California of San Francisco once claimed that there were as many pistols in Chinatown as in all the other parts of the city combined. To some, 6 shooters seem to provide a sense of security and equality, lending aptness to historian Walt Prescott Webb's observation that God made some men large, some men small, but Colonel Call made them all equal. In a moment's self-defense, a Chinese could draw his weapon as fast as any frontiersman. Once in Denver, Colorado, 4 Texas cowboys received unexpected treatment in Chinatown. After visiting a black brothel, the rogue party, which wanted more excitement, decided to use the street lamps and the Chinese laundry for target practice. Responding immediately, the owner of the laundry and his brother drew their pistol and engaging a typical Western shootout with the cowboy. 2 policemen quickly arrived on the scene and promptly arrested 4 Texas ruffians. In another case, a white man tried one night to set a Chinese house on fire. one of the Chinese immediately pulled out his pistol and shot the arsonist in the arm. Injured and shot, this white troublemaker eventually landed in jail. This incident served notice to everyone to think twice before giving the Chinese any trouble. As on the street, the Chinese aggressively fought the political and the legal rights in American courtroom, although they were not party to the full benefits of the American legal system. Chinese made the best effort they could to defend their right under the existing circumstances. Contrary to the popular image that Chinese are acquainted with American political institutions, passively submit to mistreatment. In fact, they aggressively use the judicial system to defend themselves against discriminatory legislation, excessive exploitation, mob violence, and social injustice. During the second half of the 19th century, Chinese mounted a core challenge to virtually every unfair law and ordinance, from the foreign miners' tax to school segregation. In some cases, Chinese high-power lawyers and lobbyists to fight legal and political battle. Meanwhile, the Chinese even bravely challenged the American judicial system by asking for cultural accommodation in some court proceeding, after securing the right to bear witness during the era of Reconstruction. The Chinese throughout the West demanded that their witness be sworn in by the Chinese method, which they believed was the only way to guarantee veracity. Their intransigence on the matter sometimes led to open conflict. These confrontations usually end with a frontier judge agreeing to a frontier oath-taking ceremony in the courtroom. If the judge granted permission, each Chinese witness will cut off a live chicken's head to draw blood on a platter. The witness then dipped a piece of paper containing his written oath in the blood. The paper was properly burned with a candle. Once in Wazee County, Idaho, a fascinating judge leaned across the bench and asked the interpreter, "What does that all mean?" In fact, both Chinese and American oath-taking ceremony were accepted in court throughout the West. Above all, legal and political battle involving the issue of Chinese immigration played a crucial role in Gilded Age politics. The debate over so-called Chinese question touched a number of the principles of our republic. We know that in every presidential elections, immigration issue will come up, right? Yeah. And it was true in 1880. In my latest book, The Road to Chinese Exclusion, the Denver Riot, 1880 election, and the rise of the West, I suggest there was a clear connection between the anti-Chinese movement and American sectionalism. In addition, my study again testified to the profound impact of Chinese immigration on American history. Sectional conflict and race relations are two dominant themes in American history. Since its founding, the United States frequently has had to deal with the balance of political power among its different regions. On many occasions, over the issue of a race relation. During the first 100 years after independence, almost all the sectional conflict occurred between the northern and the southern states east of the Mississippi. These battles result in many fateful historical events, such as 3/5 compromise, Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, and eventually the Civil War. The westward expansion of the United States added a new dimension to the North-South struggle. When the nation entered its second century, sectionalism was fundamentally transformed from a two-way rivalry between the North and the South into a three-way competition that now includes the rising West. In the second half of the 19th century, the West rose steadily to national political prominence through a series of political campaigns and events, including the anti-Chinese crusade, the Indian War, the Silver Issue, women's suffrage, and many others. By the early 20th century, Western clearly achieved political equality with other two regions. Frederick Jackson Turner acknowledged the seismic shift at the 50th anniversary of the end of Reconstruction. Quote, in the political history of the United States since 1876, the West has played a leading role. Unquote. The rise of the West is arguably the most important feature in the second phase in the history of American sectional conflict. During the rise of the American West, the effort to restrict Chinese immigration unexpectedly emerged as one of the first major political issues to unite the region. More than anything else, post-Civil War politics helped to transform the anti-Chinese movement from a regionalized, sandlocked scrap into a national brawl. The main reason for this transformation centered on evolving national politics, especially the evolution of the Republican Party. Founded as a sectional political organization, the Republican Party in 1850 operated only in the North and the West. During the Civil War, however, Lincoln's party, backed by U.S. troops, triumphantly expanded into the once solid Democratic South, becoming a national party. During Reconstruction, Southern Redeemers effectively drove the Republican Party to near extinction in the region. Reduced to a sectional party again by the mid-1870s, the Republican had no choice but to return to a traditional winning formula based on a North and a Western alliance. But the emerging Chinese question in the West immediately jeopardized this hasty plan, fomenting divisions within the Republican rank along ideological and sectional lines. Equal rights for all races had been one of the hallmarks of the Republican ideology. During the year of Reconstruction, radical Republican leaders fervently pushed the agenda to new heights with the passage of the 14th and the 15th Amendment. On the West Coast, however, a strong public outcry against the Chinese immigration and the growing strength of the Democratic Party forced the Republican Party to come up with a practical victory plan. To court labor votes, many local Republican candidates and officials willing to endorse the anti-Chinese campaign and voice their support for any discriminatory measures against this ethnic group. Anti-Chinese rhetoric in local politics contradicted the idea of universal equality embraced by the National Republican Party. For the first time, these unscrupulous, opportunistic Western renegades began to challenge the party's Eastern dominance, as well as its long-standing values based on equal rights and equal protection, by pushing a sectional agenda to restrict Chinese immigration. The opportunity came with the presidential election of 1880. The 1880 election is not very well known in political history because previous scholars have claimed that it lacked drama and a broad national significance. Both candidates, Winfield S. Hancock, the Democrat, and James A. Garfield, the Republican, were lackluster. However, I argue this election is extremely important to the anti-Chinese campaign, which was a Western cause. Initially, each party struck to find a compelling campaign issue About 2 weeks before the election, however, the nation was hit by a true October surprise. Plotted by the Democratic National Committee, a fabricated letter supposed to have been written by Garfield expressed his opinion in favor of free immigration of cheap Chinese labor. Using the issue of Chinese immigration, the Democratic Party intends to rouse the working class everywhere, and in particular, to steal the Pacific coast from the Republicans. Suddenly, the whole country was in battle over the Chinese question, and the election seemed to be up for grabs. This is the only time that Chinese immigration became the major issue in an American presidential election. 2 days before the election, an anti-Chinese riot took place in Denver, covering about 50 city blocks in the central business district. A mob of several thousand white attacked a few hundred Chinese residents for 8 hours. As a result, all the Chinese residents and the business in the area were destroyed. The Denver riot further sensationalized the issue of Chinese immigration in the final lap of a presidential campaign. Although this vicious trick by the Democrat failed to alter the result of the national election, and the Republican retained the White House, this October surprise had a long-lasting political impact. In the election, 80% of eligible voters cast their black ballots, resulting in one of the highest voter turnout in U.S. history. Out of more than 9.2 million votes, the winner carried a majority of only 9,000, or less than 0.1%. It is one of the closest elections in history as well. Nevertheless, the election result shocked the Republican leaders. The Chinese question did win California, Nevada, and New Jersey for the Democrats. In New York, Garfield barely won with a 30,000 vote margin. Without New York, Hancock would have won the presidency. For the first time since 1856, California had favored the Democratic presidential candidate. The Republican Party never lost Nevada until now. The anti-Chinese movement had threatened the national Republican winning formula, the Northwest Alliance. Colorado and Oregon could well be the next state to fall into Democrats' hands. No Republican leader dared to imagine such a scenario. Recognizing the political price for defending the Chinese, some pragmatic Republicans in the East began to show their willingness to compromise the egalitarian principle in favor of political alliance with their Western colleagues by withdrawing their stiff resistance to Chinese exclusion legislation. Still, this reversal was not easy transition. However, most of the delegation from New England adhered to the sacred principle of equal rights. Consequently, the real fight in Congress over the Chinese questions occurred among the Republicans themselves, those of the West against those of the Northeast. Receiving near unanimous support from the Democrat, the Western Republican easily prevailed in the vote to pass the Chinese Exclusion Act in the spring of 1882. It marked a watershed in American political history. For the first time, the nation abandoned its acclaimed tradition of free immigration for all people, setting up a precedent for future race-based immigration legislation. As a great sectional as well as an ideological compromise, the Chinese Exclusion Act gave the West its first major victory in national politics. After the Chinese exclusion law was passed, illegal immigration was a logical choice by those who desired to seek entry at almost any cost. They became the country's first sizable